All right, well, welcome everyone to our AI Appetizers series, A Taste of Ethical AI for Educators. Welcome to our third part of our series today, where we're going to be talking about AI literacy for students. So the link there on the screen, the bit.ly link, will give you access to these resources. So that way you can share them and take them and use them with anyone that you're working with. And they'll also be posted on the Padlet. I will share that link again at the end. And we've been posting our video recordings of these sessions there as well. So we're going to dive right in today when we talk about building AI literacy. Recapping kind of the last two sessions that we were working with, we were talking about guidance last week and being able to sort through how are we going to, kind of sort out what tools are appropriate or not. We talked about ways to kind of get kids to see AI in a different light. So we're going to open up this question here for us all today. Since we're talking about AI literacy, I want to get your thoughts before we dive in. So AI literacy is important because I want you to go ahead and either you can unmute or drop your response in the chat. So I'll give you a moment or two. AI literacy is important because... Anyone have anything they want to share?
Well, I think it's important because we're all going to use it whether we have any background in it or not. So we might as well be informed. And students especially, so we can talk about it.
Absolutely. I see a lot of things in the chat. Thanks, Kathy, for unmuting and sharing as well. We need them to be prepared to use it responsibly. It's like information literacy. They need to know that it can help and hinder them in the future. So I think everyone is on track with this one. And we're really going to be thinking about those ways that how are we going to best prepare not only students, but adults and parents when we talk about this? How are we really preparing everyone for the future and what that will look like? So we're going to start with just a mini kind of game activity to kind of warm us up here. And I'm going to skip here through a couple of those slides. So I want you to think about this one. So giving you a couple thought processes here at the beginning of our Lunch and Learn. How many uses can you think of for a rubber band? So any ideas? Who's got some great life hacks for rubber bands? Besides maybe at holding things together, right?
You can use a rubber band on a door so that putting it on one of the doorknobs on one side, crossing it, putting on a doorknob on the other side, and making sure that your latch stays in, and then you won't lock yourself out.
You got it. I see some great ones in the chat too. So those are some of the ways that you're considering using a rubber band. So then if I jump forward here and we think about asking AI, how does that look? Can you think of creative ways? I'm going to jump out of the screen for a second so you can see AI's responses to this. And I just asked it very simply, come up with some creative uses for a rubber band. So when we start to see in a matter of seconds, which we've experienced with AI so far, all the different things it gives us: jar opener, bookmark, pencil grip, page keeper, stamp maker, paintbrush holder, slingshot. I saw someone put weapon in there too. Hair tie, of course, we saw non-slip hanger. All of these things it came up with, right? So when we think about the difference between our thought process and what we came up with and what AI came up with, we kind of want to blend those together. So we take our list and AI's list, and we kind of can make a Venn diagram of that. And one of the things I know, two of the things actually that we saw on that list was a weapon or a hair tie, right? Not a weapon to hurt anyone, right? But something like that. So what does this mean when we're talking about AI literacy? You're probably like, why are we talking about rubber bands and AI literacy? Well, when we think about our experiences, Kathy was mentioning you use it to hold those cabinet door closed. I didn't see that on the AI list because her personal experiences or the thought process that she came up with was what made her have that piece. That was her own human part of that. When we look at the AI pieces, sure, it can give me a ton of great ideas, but it lacks that experience, those human experiences, that emotion that might go with it, the times where you had to use a rubber band for something, maybe in an emergency situation, whatever that may be, because it runs on data patterns. So we've touched a little bit about how AI works, and it moves from big data and uses that big data to come up with those conclusions. So we really want to leverage that human and AI piece together for creativity. So this activity, why I started off with this activity is because it is actually one of the AI literacy pieces that AI EDU has put together. So you see those slides that I have there. And this is geared towards elementary students. So real basic, right? Took a few minutes. We could have spent longer on it, but it's a great way to just have kids start talking about what AI is and how it's different than our human brain, right? So we just think that kids automatically assume what this is no matter what age they are, but they don't. They just know the things they see around them, asking Siri a question, asking Alexa to do something in their house, but they don't really understand the inside workings of it, that it works from data and patterns, that it's pulling from data and it is not actually a human. So this is a great just little snippet way that you could start with students. And a lot of it is just having those beginning discussions with them and talking about it. So as we talk about AI literacy today in our session, the definition is there on your screen. So it's talking about really understanding what AI is and how it works, how to ethically use it. So knowing when and when not to use it, but also understanding that it can have bias and it can make up information as well. Once our students and ourselves as adults understand that and have that AI literacy, we move into AI readiness. That's where we can really leverage it and use it for creativity purposes. We can use it for our personal experiences, for our work, we can, but it allows us to really evolve and change how we're using AI as just a tool to support what it is we want to do instead of doing the work for us. So that's a big piece. And you're going to notice as we work through here that I saw in the chat there when you mentioned why AI literacy is important, it's tied to information literacy, media literacy, digital literacy, which we're going to look at on the next slide too. So a great visual here to just think about. So when we think about adults, students, parents, letting them know what is the basics of AI. So how does it work? We did a couple examples with that Google Quick Draw to kind of show them how it's doing machine learning. It's learning by patterns, and that's helping it grow and get better. But then we have to build in that critically analyzing piece of that. Is it true? How do I fact check this? How do I really know if the information that it's giving me is right? How do I know if this is real or not, what it created? So we have to be the critical thinker. And then that allows us to move that to that next piece where we know how we can use it with our human brains and pull those two together to really create some awesome things. So this is something that we haven't heard before, right? And in my days of being a media specialist, this was huge, right? When the internet came out, digital literacy and digital citizenship were huge, and they still are and still need to be incorporated with our students and with adults as well. We're adding AI literacy onto that because it really is very similar. Being able to recognize bias. Is it true? Is it not? Did the data that it came from, was it correct? Is it just one part of data that it pulled from? I have to be able to critically think, is this something that I could use? I also need to be aware of how I'm using it. So digital responsibility. Am I citing my AI as a resource? Did I ask my teacher if I could use this? Did we have a discussion? So all of these things, when I think about when kids wanted to put music into a presentation and we had to talk about how do you cite that? How many seconds can you include in your presentation? These are all those important pieces to help prepare them for what the future is going to look like and allowing them to use AI ethically along the way. So this graphic is very, very interesting to me. I came across this from AI for education, and I believe I put the link. So a lot of these things, if you click on them, you can link it out and actually see that report and that resource that's there. So this is showing that those with lower AI literacy, okay, they're more likely to embrace AI technology. And you would think it would be opposite, right? You would think that if they didn't have understanding of AI at all, that they would just not want to use it. But here's the piece to that. They're using it like it's magic, right? They're using it to do the assignment for them. They're using it to answer all the questions for them. And they're missing that very important piece of being able to determine, where does my human brain come into this? Where do I blend it and actually really make my experiences and my creativity soar, make my writing better, make my presentations better, whatever that may look like for them, using it as a tool to leverage that possibility and not just using it to answer questions. So low AI literacy, so not talking to students about it, not helping them learn what that is going to continue that wheel and cycle of them just using it to do the work for them and never seeing how it can be used differently. So this is why AI literacy is so important as we talk about our students, no matter what grade they're in, starting elementary all the way up to high school, college, adults, parents, all those things. Another piece that I did see someone mention in the chat too is so our workforce. So why AI literacy is so important now for our students' futures is this number right here. And I bet since I've put this presentation together, I bet that this number has even increased over time. So as the last time they had this, 73% of employers were using generative AI, but only 55% of college graduates said that, hey, no one ever talked about it with us. We were not maybe allowed to even use it in our college prep programs. So that is kind of concerning because we have this discrepancy between it. And here are some of the things that those employers are using generative AI for: researching, right? Helping support their writing, analyzing data, brainstorming and getting ideas, and helping them even improve their products depending on what the business is that they're doing. And I think all of what we do when we're teaching students and preparing them for whatever path it is that they're going to choose, not all of them are going to go to college. Some are going to jump right into a career. But this is really very important to see. So this came from the World Economic Forum, and this just came out 2025. So again, you can click on this and get the full report. But when we talk about generative AI skills, and that's that AI literacy as well, understanding how it works and analyzing it, look at the numbers here. So here we are in April 2023. Here we are at the end of October last year, and here we are in March now, right? So we know that this probably has even grown higher. So jobs are looking for people that have these skills and understanding of how to use AI ethically and appropriately in their job to make it more efficient or however that may help them. And then this is really fantastic too. So here are the fastest growing and fastest declining jobs. Now, I only put the fastest growing ones on here for you right now, but you'll notice that looking at the top ones, data specialists, engineers, AI and machine learning specialists is number 3 on the list. And then you have all these other ones here. So many of them are tech related. So when we're thinking about this, engineering and designers and IT and whatever that may be, AI is going to be a huge part of that, and so is technology. So again, I always think back, okay, I'm an educator, K to 12. How am I helping prepare these kids for jobs that we don't even know are going to be out there yet? Because guaranteed those jobs on those lists probably weren't there 10 years ago, for sure. So let's start with some examples. What can you start with very simply in your classroom? So that way you can start supporting AI literacy at all levels, K to 12. Okay. So here's some bites that I want you to chew on for to try out for next week and to try out with students as well. So both of these resources that I've linked in here are from AI EDU. So they have so many fantastic things. But what I really like about these two that I put in here, they can be used as very quick, short activities like after lunch recess for elementary kids. Here they come in before we read a book, whatever that looks like. Here's a 5-minute activity that we could really weave into our daily routine. The AI snapshots down here on the bottom right, those are geared towards middle school and high school. And what's really neat to see about these is that I'm going to jump ahead here. They are subject specific. So you have English, you have science, you have history. So if you're like, well, these are my standards and I have to teach it, here's a great thing that you can do. So here's language arts. We're talking about students are analyzing benefits and drawbacks of traditional versus AI powered online search. Okay, great. So here's the activity that you're going to do. It's just a one slider. And this one, a lot of them do just require discussion. 5 minutes, set the timer in your classroom, have the discussion. It really helps kids start to really think about what AI is and how it can be used, and maybe sometimes how it may not be helpful to them at all. So check these resources out. You should be able to use those. And I like this one at the top. This is from Digital Promise. They have a fantastic AI literacy framework as well. And you see kind of the cycle, right? They have to understand what AI is and how it works. They're going to utilize it, and then they're going to evaluate that. And then you continue the cycle all the time. And that's truly what AI literacy is as we work through. If you're thinking, okay, those are great as like bell ringers and kind of warm up things, but how do I weave it into my everyday activities and lessons that I'm doing with kids? Well, here are some other bites and ideas that you can kind of chew on. So in our sessions, we've talked a little bit about a chatbot called Bite, which is not age restricted at all. You can use it with elementary all the way up to 12th grade. Kids never log in. So you can use Bite to help students be their writing coach or their writing assistant. They could put their writing in there, or they could use it to start kind of generating ideas. Here's another way that you could do that. So Brisk is another tool that has a fantastic piece built in called Writing Coach, where it actually takes the student and it will say, hey, what are you working on? So if I'm doing an argumentative essay, for example, it's going to help me with, let's start with your statement that you want to do. Okay, what other ideas can you talk about it? So basically the AI bot in any of these, ChatGPT, Brisk, Magic School, School AI, whatever your approved one is or one that you have a preference to use, all of them can be used in a similar way. And all they're really doing is questioning students to think more. Give me more information about this. Now let's put it into your writing. So it's guiding them just like we would do, but now it's become a kind of personal assistant for them. They don't have to wait for the teacher to be able to come back and help them with their writing. They have it right in real time with them, which is super cool. So that can be used for any kind of writing activity, of course, for any subject. And then my favorite over here is Canva. So Canva for education, free for all teachers, but it has some pretty awesome AI tools built into it that you could use for any subject or project that students are doing. So here's their magic media piece. So when we want kids to think about like, okay, maybe they're writing a story or they're doing a presentation on a certain science topic they're learning about, whatever it may be, here's a safe place in Canva where they can generate images to put into their project that they want to share and kind of leverage that whole creativity piece that maybe they never thought of before. Canva also has built into a Magic Write feature, which can also help support students in their writing as well as a ton of other fun AI resources. And then lastly, I'm coming back to that AI EDU snapshot resource because, I mean, here's a great one. So we're talking about science. So maybe we're talking about bees and pollination and the environment, et cetera. Well, here's a great thought question for kids to think about. Okay, so if this is snapping pictures of the bee, great, awesome. But it's not just snapping pictures like a game cam would out in the woods, right? It's being able to recognize that it's a bee and then it snaps a picture. So how does that work? And then it prompts the kids with the question, what other ways can you imagine beyond this? So to me, I always like to think of these as like PBLs, right? Problem-based learning activities, or PBL as project-based learning. So a lot of AI really is kind of pushing our education system and our students to really start to think more critically about the topics that they're learning about, but also stretching them to move beyond just the let's Google the answer, or let's ask ChatGPT to get the answer, because that's not helping them learn along the way, right? So we really want to stretch that questioning and that ability for them to really move forward for their future. So I didn't want to leave out this piece. So those were great for kind of teachers and educators. But again, when we talk about AI literacy, we're not just talking about let's just focus on AI literacy for students. We're talking on let's focus on AI literacy for us as adults, for our parents that are out there as well. And I bring that up because I was just at a session a week or two ago and had some adults that were in the workforce, so not in education, and they had questions like, how does AI work? We're all learning this, and it's changing so rapidly that we really have to understand what's real, what's not, how is it pulling the information, where is it pulling it from. And when we think about our parents, of course, out there, here's some resources that can kind of help you get started. Again, these are really good resources: AI for education, and then again, common sense media. So I don't know if anyone has had their district have like an AI meeting at all with parents or with students. I have not heard so much in the districts that I've been in. So it'd be very interesting to kind of get a feel for, how do we start teaching our parents about this so they know what is happening with our students and how can they support them in this whole process along the way. And then once we've kind of moved as using AI for a tool or resource to help us really leverage and change our learning and make it stronger and collaborate with it, that's where we get to this part of transforming what education looks like. And I found this quote on X the other day, and I was like, this is just perfect. This is what we're talking about. And so you'll see here, students then, once they have that understanding, they can really learn how to use it and create responsibly. So instead of the going back to, I need a AI checker to always, put my students' work in it so it can tell me if they used AI or not. So we're not policing our students anymore, but we're actually supporting them in seeing how they can use it in other ways that are going to really help them with those careers that they're going to be taking part in the next few years, which is going to be quite interesting. And so I always like to kind of wrap up with a challenge. So last week our challenge was to kind of see if there's any ways that you could think about, using AI as a tool with students to kind of get them thinking as that assistant or that thought partner along the way. And it looked like some of you had put in the chat, of course, that you checked out some of those common sense media resources. So here's your challenge for next week. So I challenge you to try one of the AI literacy activities that we shared. So maybe some of those AI EDU snapshot activities. And there are other ones too that I'm going to show in our Padlet that we have as well. So on our Padlet, we have a Google Drive folder that I've shared with you. And within there are so many other activities. But you don't have to even use those activities. You can just start by having a conversation with kids. Like, why would we use AI for this? Was it better for us to use AI for this? And actually work through the process together and model for them. I think that is always more meaningful, even sometimes too, than, having them go through an activity. So you pick out what works best for your kids. You know your kids in your classroom the best, but I challenge you to try one of them for next week. And I can't wait to hear next week, how did it go and all those pieces. So when I talk about that Padlet, here's the link to that Padlet as well. It's all lowercase. And you'll see there's a QR code there too. But we've been putting all of these presentations on there as well as the recordings. Again, feel free to share these with others that may not be able to attend. I know it's always hard this. Okay. There we go. All right. So my challenge was for everyone is to try one of those AI literacy activities with your students. And feel free to share any of these things out with other people that may not be able to attend. And then there's the link to our Padlet. That's where we're hosting all of our resources, our slide presentations, as well as recordings. And I also know that Holly has it on the PBS Western Reserve website. So she shares that out in the follow-up email as well. So that way you have access to those recordings from there. All right, I'm going to go ahead and open it up for questions here. I'm going to stop screen sharing because I want to leave just a moment for that. So the rest of our pieces are in there, but I know there were some things in the chat I may have missed. So what questions do you have about AI literacy, or maybe what is your district already doing that you feel free and want to share with the group? Because I think that would be fantastic. All right. If you have questions, you always know that you can reach out to us. My email is in that slide deck that you have access to. And definitely I'm interested to see, where does that AI literacy road take you? Where is your comfort level, and how are you starting to really talk about it with students along the way? Ooh,
Christine, I just wanted
yeah,
to mention, I love that you brought in the piece about parents. I feel like that's so important because districts are a little bit overwhelmed just keeping up with it themselves. But then you have your parents at home who may know a lot about it, may know nothing about it. And how are they staying informed? So I really love that piece, including that in there this time.
yeah, thanks. Yeah, it's so important because their jobs are not like our jobs. Like, our wheelhouse is education, right? And so we're aware of that, but not everyone's career has that involved in it. So how do they help their kids? All right. Well, I want to thank all of you for attending today and taking your time out of your busy schedule to be with us, and hoping to see all of you next week for our last part of our AI Appetizer series. So thanks everyone for joining today, and we look forward to seeing you next week.